All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I actually will be just your only host for today's show. Unfortunately, something came up for my co host, Lucy, last second. So she is all good, but something came up last second, and I will be flying solo for this one. Now, if it's your first Lunch and Learn tuning in, what Lucy and I normally do is we nerd out on one topic for about 25 to 30 minutes. And that's it. If you have any questions as we go along here, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Today, we're going to be focusing specifically on the mucosal barrier and what leaky gut is and isn't. Now, this is a topic that is worthy of probably 10, 15, if not 20 hours worth of podcasting. So in these Lunch and Learns, remember, we're trying to bring you some of the main points, help you have a deeper understanding of stuff, and most importantly, understand that everything that we're talking about is all stuff that is taught in way more depth in the FDN course. So our attempted goal, I should say, doing these Lunch and Learns is, for people who maybe aren't ready for the course to be able to consume this information and still really get a decent education in this stuff, but also know that, the real stuff is in the main FDN course. So I'm excited to break that down today. I'm also excited to be back. I hope you guys had a good weekend. I went camping this weekend for the first time in, I don't know, probably almost a year, a little over a year even. I think I went last June with my wife, Maddie. And so we went with two of our best friends. We had no service while we were gone. It is just the best feeling in the world. I don't know if you guys have ever done the full out camping where you do not have service. No one can bother you. You can't bother anyone else, but that is the best thing ever. All right, so I will share my screen here in a second and we will start nerding out on leaky gut. Before we do that, I have one place to shout out, and that is our friends at North Star Grounding. I've been talking about them on almost every single podcast now. So John Hegarty, he came on a couple of months ago to our show, and he shared his story about how he left his job in finance to help his younger brother when his younger brother received a cancer diagnosis. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, it was the second time he had received this cancer diagnosis. And these guys truly are now leading lives of mission-based income. So what I mean by mission-based income is, yes, we all have to make a living. If we have businesses, they have to be profitable. Otherwise, they can't run. But everything that they're doing is with the mission first. And so North Star Grounding provides people with grounding products that allow you to ground while you are sleeping. So my wife, Maddie, and I have been using this very frequently. Other than camping, we've used it every single night. And then I think traveling to Austin, we didn't bring it there. But every other night, we've been using it. And we've absolutely loved this. It is undoubtedly helping with sleep, and objectively it's helping with sleep as well. For those on video, you can see my Oura ring, so I actually watched the scores increase because of it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And all of the profits from North Star Grounding go to funding their nonprofit, which is called Going Well. And that's a place where cancer survivors who have overcome their cancers using natural modalities will actually create videos for the people in your life that might be suffering with cancer so that they can have a message of hope, but also a message that relates to them in a way that hopefully you and I cannot relate to them, to really let them know about the stuff that's going on. So that's northstargrounding.com, and you can use code HDP, all caps, HDP15 at checkout for 15% off all orders. So thank you guys so much for giving us that code, and let's get into some leaky gut stuff. I will share one of my windows here. Give me one sec. Okay, you guys should be able to see this fairly clearly now. I'm actually thinking that's looking pretty small, so let's figure out what's going on here. There we go. That should be better. If you're on the video side, you should be able to see this a lot better now. Other than this little thing, which should have just went away. Perfect. All right, so first of all, so I don't get sued, we absolutely love this guy. Shout out to Dr. Josh Axe. We are using your diagram right here. This is drjoshaxe.com. Check him out. I always love his diagram, and so that's why I wanted to use this one. I just got it off Google Images and downloaded it, but very clearly, as you can see in the top left, this product or this diagram belongs to Dr. Axe, and we are just sharing it. So you are more than welcome to go to his website. I actually encourage you to do so. We have an FDN that co-hosts one of his podcasts, Courtney. So we absolutely love these guys and what they're doing. Anyway, now that I've saved myself here, let's talk about leaky gut, what it is and what it isn't. And I think when people are just getting into this holistic space, this is one of actually the first things that you hear of. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's one of the first things that you hear of. You start to learn that food can be medicine. The food can also be poison. You start to learn that we're adding a lot of crap to our water that we never needed to add. And you also start to learn, or hear, I should say, this idea that a lot of disease begins in the gut, right? This was all the way back to Hippocrates. He said something along the lines of all disease begins in the gut. I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but I think that's almost the exact wording. And you kind of find that interesting because he did that. Man, I'm really challenging myself here. I think it was 1,000 years ago, 1,000+ years ago. Hopefully I'm not too wrong there. And now we know, okay, wow, a lot of disease does seem to involve the gut. We at FDN don't necessarily believe that all disease begins in the gut. Notice I'm using the word all. There's definitely diseases that can start elsewhere. But what we find, especially with the clients that we work with or that we tend to take on as FDN practitioners, is these people are going to be a mess when you look at their gut. Now, what's also really interesting is autoimmunity, because if you guys search this, you can search this on PubMed. It's actually pretty well documented that most cases, if not all cases of autoimmunity, seem to contain or include some component of leaky gut. Now, they'll word it as intestinal permeability. So if you want to find it in more scientific articles, you want to start using the term intestinal permeability. Although what's cool is nowadays a lot of these studies actually are mentioning leaky gut in the study as well. So if you search for either, you should be able to find it. But what's kind of interesting about that, if you really think about it, and I know correlation is not causation, right? Any good scientist knows just because something is correlated with something does not mean it's causal, right? I always make the joke that, pickleballs, I really love it. It's taken off over the last several years. A lot of people also have long haul COVID. Now, that correlates. The more people over the last 5 years have played pickleball than ever before, correlates with more people having long haul COVID than ever before. But obviously, that is not the cause of long haul COVID. That's insane, right? But that's an extreme example that actually proves that point. If you've never understood that statement that correlation is not causation, so just something to remember. Now, with leaky gut, we find that most, if not all, cases do include some element of intestinal permeability when it comes to this autoimmune stuff. So you're like, I'm not saying that just because it correlates, it's causal, but I will say this. It's something to rejoice in, I think, for our clients and listeners who are suffering with autoimmunity, as I once have. If that's that correlated with autoimmune illness, and we know that many autoimmune diseases get reversed sometimes. They go through spontaneous remission. All this kind of stuff happens. Even Western medicine knows this, right? Well, if I can do something about that leaky gut, would that not be of benefit to my autoimmunity? And so this is one of the first places I would always look at and tell someone to start if they're dealing with one of those autoimmune conditions. There's over 100 known ones now. If I know that I can benefit my gut, which we absolutely know, we can show that objectively at FDN that we can help support intestinal permeability in a very significant way. So if I can affect that, what's going to happen to my autoimmune status or the other things I might be dealing with? Just another thing to think about. So let's break this down. What you're looking at here on this chart, obviously this is not a perfect representation of your gut, to be clear. So what we're looking at more or less is the small intestine and the lining that comes with the small intestine. And so those little blobs, if you will, in the middle of this, and by the way, for those on audio, you're probably going to want this one on video, but you'll still get something from this, of course, I hope. And if you're on the show notes, just check the link at the top. It'll have the YouTube link there. But for those on video, if you're looking at those little blob-like things in the middle, right, they have almost little fingers or little hairs at the top. What you're looking at there is the outermost cell layer of the small intestine, the epithelial cell layer of the small intestine. And so when we're looking at, from a diagram perspective of what is intestinal permeability, what is a mucosal barrier, what is leaky gut, this is really what we're referring to. We're referring to the integrity or lack thereof of this epithelial cell layer. And just to be very clear, if this isn't obvious to someone, and especially it might not be if you're clicking on our YouTube for the first time and you're new to this health space, I want to make sure I'm breaking it down enough that you understand. A gut would never look like this, by the way. So what I mean by that is, of course, it's a diagram in a cartoon. It wouldn't look that way. But what I mean is specifically, if you look at the chart, it almost shows that some of the cells are like perfectly tight together, and then the other half is like really leaky and inflamed. That's not how it would be. You wouldn't have like one half of your gut be totally fine and the other half completely destroyed. Chances are you're going to see it all trending one way or the other. But that's why I love this diagram, because it can kind of show you both and what it should be and shouldn't be, respectively. So if you look over at the left there, you'll see the word tight junctions, or the words tight junctions. And so what that's referring to is the space between those cells that make up that epithelial cell layer, that outermost cell layer. So the tight junctions are the space between. Now, if you have a healthy gut, a non-leaky gut, what should be happening is those cells stay pretty tight together and they form these tight junctions. Something else to also note is that everyone's gut, to some degree, is inherently permeable. So what I mean by that is everyone's gut, even if it was, 2,000 years ago before this whole leaky gut thing probably really took off, you're going to have ebbs and flows of permeability and less permeability, or more permeability and less permeability for someone's gut. And this is okay, because the epithelial cell layer of the gut are some of the fastest regenerating cells in the body. So it's almost like the body knew this was going to happen and it expected to have some damage, and then it expected to have to repair. You basically turn over these cells every few days, which is kind of fascinating. So this is what it should look like on the left, though. Nice and tight together, not a lot of stuff getting through. And then what happens in today's world is almost everyone has a notable increase in the permeability. So remember, I said some permeability is always going to be natural and it will probably ebb and flow. But what happens in today's world is we have way too much permeability, and it's consistent and it's all the time. And then we have more toxins and more crap in the water and more crap in the food. And this is a protective layer. This is protecting us from it getting directly into our bloodstream. So let's take this chart a little bit further. You can see right below that cell layer is this diagram's version of the bloodstream. So this was supposed to be protecting you, this cell layer. And then when it can't, that's a problem. Because if you go to the top there of the chart and you start looking at this, you'll see toxins. You'll see they list microorganisms. You'll see they list gluten. This is why I love Dr. Josh Axe's diagram. It just lists all the stuff. So these are things that a lot of people either would be consuming, right, on purpose, maybe something like gluten, or if you're not consuming that, you're gluten-free, you're still getting exposed to toxins, microorganisms, and other things, whether you like it or not. And that's not to create fear-mongering. It's just a reality of today's world. Now, normally, those things would be able to process through for the most part, and maybe your body doesn't like it overall, but you overall wake up the next day and you're safe and you're fine. When this happens for years and we have major consistent offenders involved, this doesn't heal up so fast. The gut is meant to break down and repair, but it's breaking down faster than it can repair. That's the problem. And so all these things that you normally would have been able to process fairly easily are now going directly into your bloodstream. And you want to talk about why so many people have food sensitivities. We kind of alluded to this when we talked about food sensitivities. This is one of the reasons why. It's also one of the reasons that people will question the validity of food sensitivity testing. Do we even need this? If we know that most of it's caused by a permeable gut and we know that we can heal a permeable gut, do we even need to test for food sensitivities? And of course, we made the argument for that in our food sensitivity session. So please go back to that Lunch and Learn. I forget what number that is offhand. I apologize, but it was recent. So go back to that, check it out. And we do believe that there's validity to it sometimes, to be clear. It's one of the foundational labs at FDN for a specific reason, actually. But when foods that otherwise are totally healthy, totally normal for you, totally good for you, when their proteins get into the bloodstream and your body starts to say, hey, that shouldn't be in here. It's correct in saying that, right? It shouldn't be in here. This must be an invader. This must be an offender. We need to create an immune response to this. Now let's go to the bottom of the chart. And you'll see this is connected to the bloodstream. It's right under that arch there. It says IgG, immune response, IgA reaction, B and T cell release. So these are how people are creating these food sensitivities. You have an offender that's getting through the castle walls, right? It's going right on through. It's like having this huge castle that was meant to protect everything, except there's massive gaps every few feet in the castle. Well, it's impressive, it's cool, but we're just going to walk right through that. And so the offenders are walking right through. And then your internal army, if you will, is saying, oh my gosh, we need to attack this. We need to attack this. We need to attack this. Except you don't stop eating food because you're a human being, right? That's probably smart to not stop eating food. I know we're into fasting, but we don't want to go that extreme. And so to continue the analogy, it would almost be as if you have this limited army in the castle, but the offenders coming through these cracks in the wall, it never stops. It's all day, every day, more offenders keep coming through. More offenders keep coming through. So your little army in there starts attacking. And guess what happens when an army attacks from inside the castle? It hurts the castle walls, right? Maybe you get the offender, but man, you got a bullet hole in the wall, or an arrow went through this, or the cannonball went through that, right? It's not good. And that's honestly a pretty good analogy for what's happening in your body. Your body is creating this immune response. Your body is creating this army now, except the army has to decide, do we really just, take the time to sniper the offender, or do we get so overwhelmed by the offense that's happening that we just got to accept, hey, there's going to be some casualties to our walls here. We just got to go. And so that's what happens. This immune response turns up. It starts attacking the offenders. It got that protein that was otherwise probably totally safe for you. But in the meantime, you had a huge stress response in your body, and your body can't do that forever. The gut got more damaged, ironically, because of this response. So now it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a vicious cycle where the gut's damaged, but the stress from the results of the damaged gut is now creating more intestinal permeability. That's no good. And you have systemic inflammation, right? Your whole body is on overdrive trying to fight this stuff and do what it can. One day of this might not be the worst thing. A couple weeks of this might not be the worst thing. This isn't how most of us are living, though. It's not just a week or a day, especially if you're in more Western cultures like America. This is all the time. Glyphosate, out of the many things that let me be careful here. The main company behind glyphosate has tried to hide from the public, and that's not a conspiracy theory. That is proven that they've tried to do this. They've actually ghost-written studies with scientists from Stanford. So if you're wondering what that means, by the way, that means they paid off a respected scientist from a prestigious university that sounds good next to the name to write results for studies that did not occur. So that's not a conspiracy theory. That's well documented. Just look that one up. Have fun with that. So these people are fighting tooth and nail to make sure we don't get the full science about what their products do and don't do. However, one of the things that we do know is glyphosate increases intestinal permeability. Then you might ask, well, who has glyphosate in them? Who's exposed to glyphosate? Anyone living in America. Anyone living in a lot of Western countries, actually. So you might say, well, I eat organic. I eat from the backyard. That doesn't matter. Glyphosate's been used I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. You'll get less exposure. I didn't mean it doesn't matter at all. But you're still getting exposure nowadays, no matter what. If you don't believe that, by the way, Great Plains, now Mosaic, offers a test for glyphosate. You can do a urine test for this and see if you do or do not have exposure. I unfortunately would bet money that almost every single person watching this does have a notable amount of exposure that would show up in their urine. And so you're trying to do all the right things. You're trying to do all this stuff. But glyphosate alone is something that is keeping this mucosal barrier constantly on fire. It's creating more and more intestinal permeability. It's creating what we call leaky gut. And that's leading to all these health issues, or at least a core part of what's leading to all these health issues, the autoimmunities, the food intolerances. If you go to the very bottom of the chart, you can see this. It's nutrient malabsorption, blood-brain barrier reach, right? So many people having mental health conditions. I've had this myself. So you got to watch out for this. And again, this is not to create fear-mongering per se. What do we got shared here? Oh, nice. Thank you, Tracy, for sharing the test. This is awesome. I don't know if the public can buy that, but we got to get a commission on that or something. Anyway, I'll show it for you guys. So you will be able to see the link down there. It's not a pretty link per se, but it's a memorizable one. And so I will have this in the show notes for you guys as well if you're interested in that test. We are not affiliated right now, but I'm going to guess that Reed wants me to be after this. So when we're doing everything that we can and trying to fight this stuff and trying to eat well. I also think, by the way, this is a reason that people feel so good on carnivore. Not that it's perfect or imperfect. I think one of the reasons that it feels so good is because it's such a low toxin load, including things like glyphosate. So I think it's helping people's gut. But when we're trying to do everything that we can, and we know that no matter what we do, we're still going to have this stuff, what the heck is the answer? Well, the answer is to be aware and to be constantly proactive in how we are addressing the issues of today's world. So you might have to go a little above and beyond to get your gut to where you would like it to be. And here's a few examples of what you can do. This is not medical advice. Always consult with your doctor before you choose to start any supplement or do anything for your health, but just some things to think about. One is using bovine serum immunoglobulins. So things like IgG 2000 from Microbiome Labs, great product. What this will do is kind of help you bind up and fight some of the invaders that are in your body anyway, and lower that burden on the gut. Those are great products. Definitely always, again, consult with a healthcare professional before taking these things, especially for any extended period of time. That could be really useful though. And they seem to be relatively, again, not advice, but they seem to be relatively safe even on the longer term. Probiotics, I know you guys have heard these before, obviously, but specific probiotics are very good for managing heavy metal exposure. Fascinating, right? So making sure that you're supplementing with that because you're probably going to be low in the good bacteria. Prebiotics can also help, of course. They arguably can help more with the good bacteria, but just taking probiotics alone can help with some of the heavy metal load. Also, another one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, not that it never gets talked about, but in my opinion, it's not enough, L-glutamine supplementation. Huge disclaimer on this one, besides it's not medical advice. If you have certain genetic SNPs and you're otherwise unhealthy, about 10% of clients I find react negatively to L-glutamine. And that's because it can convert to glutamate, which if you've ever read the book Excitotoxins, definitely check that out. This is one of the reasons MSG makes people feel so bad. So glutamate can act as this excitotoxin in your brain. And unfortunately, you can experience that as extreme levels of anxiety, even depression. My mom got this when she first started taking L-glutamine. She's like, I know something's wrong here. I know my anxiety is going higher. So she had no idea these things are connected. And sure enough, she was on the kick of doing bone broth in the morning, which has a lot of L-glutamine naturally, supplementing with it throughout the day, all that kind of stuff. What's interesting, though, is I have the same genetic SNPs, but I didn't start with L-glutamine until later in my healing journey. And I find that I can take fairly large doses every single day if I wanted to without those negative effects. And if you don't believe that this can help, again, this is not my opinion. These are all things that you can find on PubMed. There's studies showing that kind of mega dosing L-glutamine for a 30-day period can be very, very beneficial for leaky gut. So when I say mega dosing, I mean that if you buy a standard bottle of L-glutamine or something, most of the recommendations are going to be around 5 grams per day. So my quote unquote mega dose here, referring to these studies, not my opinion, is about 10 to 30 grams a day. And if you did like the 30 grams, you would maybe do 10, 10, and 10. Just an example of what you could do, not a recommendation. And if you were to do that, it can be extremely healing for the gut and can help close things up very fast. You'd actually be shocked how fast you can feel better if you're doing a lot of the other stuff. Just adding in something like L-glutamine at a high dose. I noticed times where I was doing all the things and I still had a little lingering set of breakouts or acne. And just by megadosing L-glutamine for a 2 to 3 week period, everything got so much better. But this is what we're up against. I'm not arguing per se that everyone's born deficient in L-glutamine or bovine serum immunoglobulins or probiotics. You could be, but most of those things are not inherently deficiencies in you when you're born. But because of today's world and what we're up against, we need to take that action. We need to do those additional things. This is why a multivitamin, something as simple as that, can be so beneficial in today's world. It's not because the food shouldn't have given you enough nutrients to begin with. It's because even the organic stuff, the soil that it's grown in, a lot of it's depleted. So the best quality food is still less nutrient dense than ever before, right? So you just make these adjustments for today's world. I know I make it sound so simple, right? Like we're not up against an insane amount of toxins and crazy companies that want to kill people, it seems sometimes. I'm not saying maybe they don't want to do that, but it's hard to argue otherwise sometimes. But you got to take the steps. And thank God the steps are not really as hard as you think sometimes. It could be intelligent supplementation, relatively cheap supplementation, mind you. None of these things Probiotics can get up there. L-glutamine is very cheap. You can buy that in bulk very easily. Comparably cheap, I should say, to other things. And you do the right things with food, and you try to not eat stuff that would be coated in glyphosate. So there are foods, obviously, that have less. And understanding, when it's like the 5G concept for me. Not that I want to sit next to a 5G cell tower by any means, but it's here. Unless I'm going to go live in the middle of nowhere in the woods, I'm probably going to get exposed to it to some degree. So I do the best that I can while always being aware of where I'm at health wise. And if it ever got too extreme, maybe I would go, live in the woods for a while with my wife if I could convince her to do that. She'd probably love it actually more than me. At the same time, with the gut stuff, I'm eating well and doing intelligent supplementation, and if I ever found that it was getting too bad and too extreme for me, well, then you adjust and you turn it up even more. So this is probably all I'll say for today. This is a loose overview of what leaky gut actually is. So you should be able to define this for people. You should be able to tell your clients what this is. And as complex as the implications of leaky gut syndrome are, the explanation is fairly simple. Leaky gut is nothing more than increased or abnormal amounts of intestinal permeability. Leaky gut is nothing more than increased or abnormal amounts of intestinal permeability. Remember, intestinal permeability is happening all the time. Over-exercise has been proven to increase intestinal permeability. We have glyphosate. We have all the crap foods that we're eating, the sugars and stuff, antibiotics, man. You could list off 100 things and you can have your fear grow every single time you list another one. Or you say, this is what it is. Thank God we have things that we can use in today's world to support ourselves with these unique problems that come with today's world. And thank God that you're a part of this community. And even if you're not an FDN or don't plan on becoming an FDN, that's okay. Drop questions in these YouTube chats. Show up to the next live because Lucy and I, our next time, we're going to be going over our mucosal barrier assessment test that we do consider a foundational lab at FDN. So it's called our MBA. It's not a business degree, right? Unfortunately, but it's our mucosal barrier assessment. And it's a test that we use that looks at very specific markers in the body that are highly correlated with the integrity of a person's gut. So this is the light overview today. And then next time we're going to be nerding out on the testing side of this, because the truth is, yes, you can test for it. Yes, you can figure out fairly accurately how permeable someone's gut is. And you don't need to go do, an endoscopy or colonoscopy and really get in there to figure it out. You can do this with a test that is fairly simple. So I thank you guys so much for tuning in. I also thank you, Tracy, because she dropped below. It was Lunch&Learn number 5. That was where we did the MRT food sensitivity testing. So number 5, this is episode number 10 of Lunch&Learn. But back there, what we did is we made the case for food sensitivity testing if you guys didn't nerd out enough today yet and you want to get into something more. So I'm looking forward to having my partner in crime, I should say partner in health. I don't think we're committing any crimes recently, at least. So that's good. And co-host Lucy back next week. And we will see you guys then.